Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. I'm Cassidy Carson and this is The Life of a Writer. Today is January 13th, 2026, and I am going to talk about inspiration. In particular, I am going to talk about the inspiration for my Restless Spirits series, which I have just completed the first draft of book 2. Book 3 is already drafted but needs revision. So I want to release those 2 books this year, book 2 in April and book 3 in June. And so far it looks like I'm on track for that. But I have mentioned in the past that book 3 was originally intended as a standalone, and it evolved into the series Restless Spirits. And I'm not sure how that happened. I don't have a clear recollection of how I decided that I was going to expand on the book and turn it into a series, but I do remember the specific moment of inspiration, and I will put that moment right here. As you can see, this is a photo of me with Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki from the television show Supernatural. So obviously I was a Supernatural, still am a Supernatural fan, and I went to 2, maybe 3 conventions with my kids. And my kids were into their teens and adulthood throughout the course of the show. So the specific moment of inspiration for book 3 of Restless Spirits happened at a Supernatural convention. It was not the first one that we had gone to. I believe it was the Las Vegas convention. And of course, when you go to these conventions, anybody who is familiar knows that you have a variety of things to do. There are usually panel discussions. There are things like karaoke nights, which were a lot of fun. And there are autograph sessions. And then there are the photo ops. Now, the photo ops are very popular and they've become very expensive over time, but people just love getting their photos with the celebrities. So we bought several photo packages for this convention. I should say my oldest did. Thank you to her, because she spent a lot of money on these conventions, and we had some great times as a result. But some of the photo options are the main characters or the main actors, such as Jensen and Jared, the secondary actors, or who become, long-running actors, like Misha Collins, for example, and then some of the one-off. They may not have done only one episode, but they show up very rarely. So, I mean, at one point, Jim Beaver was a very regular part of the show, and then as the show progressed, he was a little bit more hit or miss. And of course, there's also Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who went on to do The Walking Dead. So you can tell I've been involved in the Supernatural fandom over the years. And the moment that inspired book 3 of Restless Spirits was during one of the photo ops. We were waiting to go see, it was a duo op or a sandwich photo with Jared and Jensen. And a lot of fans will have specific ideas in mind when they go up to have these photos done. For example, one of my kids wanted to do something of a James Bond type of photo look. So they posed in that particular way for the photo. I've seen people who do prom dresses and make it look like an old school prom photo. But I didn't really have any ideas for this. And I was gifted a sandwich photo with Jared and Jensen. So basically I walked in there and I said, I just want a hug. Obviously I am a bit older than the actors, probably by at least a couple of decades. So I'm not crushing on them or anything. I think they're cute kids, basically. But the photo turned out kind of cute. And again, I'll show it here. So I feel like I'm maybe like one of their favorite aunts, or, I don't know if I'm mom territory, but I feel like it turned out to be kind of a cute family photo type of look. And I remember I don't remember specifically Jensen, but I think Jared may have been wearing like a cable knit sweater or something like this at this convention. He was wearing, I think, a sweater of some type. And I remember I put my arms behind their backs and I could feel the texture of the sweater. And of course I could smell their cologne and things like that. So we did the quick photo op and I was walking away and I look back. I think Jared may have said something. I look back, he smiled at me, and Jared is about the same height as my husband. I think they're both around 6'5", 6'4", 6'5". So a lot of people will say, oh my gosh, they're so tall, but I'm used to the height. So that didn't really catch my attention, but the smile he gave me was incredible. And I kind of got that warm feeling. And after the photo op, I was waiting outside and I was thinking, why is it that I remember Jared, but I don't remember Jensen? So I was talking about this with my oldest daughter, and we were joking that Jensen has this very special superpower, that he's just such a charismatic personality that he blocks your memories of what's happening when you're around him. And, you know, I don't know, maybe I was starstruck and just didn't really pay attention, or maybe Jared distracted me. I was more of a Dean girl than a Sam girl, I will admit to that. I always thought Sam was a little bit too uptight, but that's another issue altogether. So we had this discussion and I was like, you know, that would be a great story idea, that there's an actor who has a superpower and he's able to manipulate people around him through the superpower. And my original intent was to have that actor, based on Jensen, you know, he'd be going around using this superpower to get him out of things, but it would be a romance. And that has evolved. So basically, Restless Spirits, the series, is based on Supernatural, the series, but not directly the show itself. It's based on the fandom. And my main group throughout the course of this book series is a multi-generational group of friends who were big fans of the show Restless Spirits. So they had an interest in the paranormal before Restless Spirits started to air. Restless Spirits is a long-running show, much like Supernatural was, and they come to rely on their get-togethers to watch the show. Now, they're watching it as it airs. They're not streaming, binge-watching it. They want to keep up with the show as it's airing because it's on a network. It's not really on streaming. So they kind of get together and they have these watch parties and they talk about how realistic they find some of the parts of the show. And the show Restless Spirits itself might be more similar maybe to something more old school, like The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, if anybody is familiar with that show. It's more of a cozy old school kind of paranormal show. And it deals with basically one of the characters is possessing another one in order to solve the mystery of their murder, or the mystery of, there is some mystery. I haven't really clarified that. I need to write that out at some point, probably about the time I'm releasing book 3. But the Friends group, who are a group of paranormal investigators called Beyond Investigations, they do show up in book 1, Passion Restored. And Passion Restored has a brief mention of them watching Restless Spirits, and there are some discussions of the actors. Now, in my universe, the actors, the Jensen Ackles character, analog, not a direct comparison, but his name would be Justin Case. And then the Jared Padalecki character, again, not a direct comparison, his name is Rich Mann. He's actually, his real name is Richard Manning, but he shortened it to Rich Mann as his stage name because, you know, it can be difficult for actors to use their real name sometimes because someone may have already taken that name within the actors union. So obviously I know a bit about the acting world. I'm not a actor myself, even though I did get to be an extra in a movie, and I'll talk more about that at some point. But the two characters, Justin Case and Rich Manning, Obviously the friends group talks about them, and the mother of one of the main characters, the female main character in Passion Restored, she is a fan of Just in Case, and she is an older woman. She's in her 80s, and long, she lost her husband many years prior to the time in which the book takes place. So she jokes about Just in Case being her guy, and they're teasing her about it and everything. Now her daughter Angela, who is the female main character in the book, she goes along with the show and she watches it and she enjoys it, but she's not really a fan of either of the actors, not to the extent that her mother is. There is a younger woman in the book as well. Her name is Krista Dunn, and she is actually Angela's goddaughter, and she's the daughter of Angela's good friends from growing up, her friends specifically from high school, Sage and Larea Dunn. So Krista, Sage, and Larea are part of Beyond Investigations. Angela is part of Beyond Investigations. Also, the daughter of the contractor who is working on Nicholas Sampson's house is a member of Beyond Investigations, and she is a teacher at the local school. So you have this friends group, and as I said, they're fans of Restless Spirits. They get together, they watch the show and everything. So throughout the course of Passion Restored, there are some brief, excuse me, there are some brief mentions of Passion Restored, or excuse me, I'm getting myself all confused. There are some brief mentions of Restless Spirits, and it will lead into book 3, where there is actually more going on with the show itself and the actors on the show, but they are mentioned in book 1. Book 2 will be kind of a lead-in with different main characters, but book 3 specifically relates to the show Restless Spirits, whereas the series itself is more, people are following along with this TV show. The other TV show that is mentioned in Passion Restored is a home renovation show called Histo Redo. And my inspiration for that was HGTV, Home and Garden Television, because I watched a lot of that as well. So I'm very familiar with how those home renovation shows go. And the fact that the home renovation show is documenting the renovation of a house that Nicholas Sampson has bought in Virginia City, that factors into the paranormal aspect, because there is a belief that when a historic property is renovated, it can stir up spirits. So all of that, not only the inspiration for the series as a whole, but the inspiration for book 1 was actually there was a television show and a television network, basically. And the inspiration's been quite fun. I spent many years watching Supernatural, and I have to admit that Supernatural, I think, actually helped me get my job at the state archives, because there was an episode called Provenance, where there was a haunted painting, and they were talking about the provenance of where the painting came from, where it originated, and the chain of documentation that would prove that. So I was able to use that when I was interviewed for the state archives to show that I had a knowledge of, tracking original source documentation. And I think that's kind of funny. I did, of course, learn a lot more about working in an archives. It wasn't just a one-off, oh my gosh, the TV episode got me the job, but the show, I think, did help me in some ways in that interview. And so I have a lot of fond memories about Supernatural, about watching the show with my kids. Actually, I think Provenance, however you pronounce it, may have been the first episode I watched. And I will say that Supernatural is scarier. The TV show is scarier than the Restless Spirits series from my books, because that series is intended to be more of a cozy, along the lines of the Ghost of Mrs. Muir type of situation, and not something where you're dealing with things like skinwalkers and wendigos and, all those really frightening creatures of the night. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how the Restless Spirits series got started, especially now that I have drafts of books 2 and 3 they're in progress. And I also did a video talking about my drafting process. Excuse me, I'm still tired. I did a video about my drafting process that you should see. I will admit that I'm filming both videos the same day because when I finished drafting book 2 of the Restless Spirits series, I was tired, so I just uploaded a short. So technically, I did not post a complete video every day, but I did post a short, and I did a follow-up video talking about my drafting process. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane as I talked about my inspiration for my Restless Spirits series. And if you are also a Supernatural fan, I hope you might check these out because, like I said, it's not a direct comparison to the TV show Supernatural, but it's more of a love letter to the fans because I have been a longtime fan of a variety of media. I've been in fandom for a long time. I've mentioned before that I wrote, starting out with fan fiction for Quantum Leap, almost got something published through a large publishing house as a TV tie-in novel to Quantum Leap. Didn't quite work out. But also, I've tried writing scripts for Star Trek The Next Generation. My fandom goes all the way back to the original Star Trek, where back in the 1960s, I am old enough to remember when the original series aired, and I do remember when they started expanding the channels on television, getting WTBS and having a color television and seeing Star Trek in color, because originally we just had a black and white TV. So I've had a lot of years of inspiration based on my fandom loves. So in the Restless Spirits series, I wanted to not only make it a romance between a couple, but it's also a love letter to the fans. So, like I said, if you're a Supernatural fan, or if you're a fan of anything really, I hope you'll check out my Restless Spirits series. And books 2 and 3 should be coming out this year. Book 2 in April, book 3 in June. I will continue talking about the process as I progress through it. I will be sending book 2 to betas, hopefully within the next week. And then once that's done, of course, it will go into the editing queue with our editors at Red Adept. And then I'll have to do the cover design contest and things like that to have it ready. So there's still a lot to be done with book 2 and book 3. So I hope you'll follow along and find out how this is progressing and see if anything crops up that will delay my potential release dates. I thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this little wander down memory lane. If you are a fan of Supernatural or any other show in particular, and you feel like you'd like to share any of your fan experiences, please do that down in the comments. It would be fun. I love the connection between fans, and going to the conventions, I think it was just as fun hanging out with the other people who were attending as it was talking to, those brief moments you get with the celebrities that you've become so familiar with. So again, Restless Spirits is a love letter to the fans. I hope you're having a wonderful day and week so far, and I thank you for joining me. Again, I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer.